I've seen a number of people on Twitter in the last few weeks asking, what happened to Elon Musk? And it's a fair question. I had a look at his account and he's still posting, although much more about his businesses now than his political escapades. That's the impression that you get from a quick glance, and it's an impression that's borne out by the data. The Washington Post did an analysis of the topics he's tweeting about. You can see it here. And his recent posts are still getting millions of views. But it did used to be the case that every time I opened Twitter, there he was, right in my face, pushing some nonsensical conspiracy theory or promoting a far-right European political party, and often both at the same time combined into one toxic tweet. And that's no longer the case. So it seems that whatever behind-the-scenes super boost that had been applied to his account, the one that said, just poke this guy into the eyeballs of anyone and everyone who happens to be passing, that has been removed. It's just one sign that Musk has come to realise, in possibly one of the most awful moments of self-awareness, just how egregiously he completely messed up his life, and probably his businesses as well. That this has been a completely ill-judged foray into an area he has zero instincts for, namely politics. And the final straw was confirmed this week, when an extremely sour-faced Elon Musk was interviewed for the Qatar Economic Forum. In amongst a string of extremely snippy and defensive answers to relatively polite and relevant questions, he made the statement that he was intending on significantly decreasing his future political spending. Now, this is particularly telling. We knew already that Musk had stepped away from significant involvement in the ill-fated Doge project. We knew already that he was reapplying himself to his businesses, having seen certainly Tesla completely savaged by association with his political campaigning for the Trump administration and those European far-right parties. But this was really the notification that he really is taking his bat home, retiring from the field, sulking and wounded, because the only enduring value that kept Republicans, and arguably Trump himself, from openly turning on him, given he has disastrously low popularity, worse than Trump himself, was the possibility of those limitless campaign funds. But in Wisconsin, Musk tried to show how all his money could effectively buy an election by piling significant amounts into the Supreme Court election there. He appeared on stage wearing a cheese hat for some reason. He gave million-dollar checks to various people at random, and he danced around the stage acting like he was a well-loved children's entertainer or something. It lost the Republicans that election. As it turns out, Elon is such a liability with the public that the association with him was enough to lose you support, regardless of all that money. Republicans reportedly gathered from that episode that Musk's money was to be taken, if at all, quietly in the background, and he was to be retired from the idea he should be a public campaigning figure. Well, that's all very well, but Elon Musk stands alongside Donald Trump as the owner of one of the two largest egos on the planet, so he probably felt that he got relatively little affirmation from that sort of arrangement. And this seems to be the real indicator of the falling out between Musk and the Trumpian Republicans. Because before, Musk was the first to be jumping in to say that any senators and any representatives who failed to vote for Trump measures would get primaried, with him throwing shed-loads of cash into their Trump loyalist opponent campaigns. That threat was certainly felt by some Republicans in Congress. It was one of the fears that kept them in line, at least for a period, which seems now to be coming to an end, because now some of them are openly rebelling against, for instance, Trump's major spending bill. Some because it would unjustifiably continue pushing up the national deficit, which is getting close to breaking point. Others because it would make too many cuts to services that they see as being valued by the public. Trump marched them all in for a good fire and brimstone talking to. And it didn't make much of an immediate impression on the renegades when they spoke about it after the event. Now look, even if they do end up in the time-honoured standard political process of haggling and horse trading, even if they do end up agreeing the bill in the end. The point is the fear component is starting to lift. And Elon Musk's humbling and his retreat from the battlefield likely seems a big part of that. Elon Musk apparently feels deeply wounded by how the public turned on him, when after all he did was behave incredibly badly and unleash an actual authoritarian government on the country, which would have been fine, so long as the Republicans were paying him the same levels of respect that they were paying Donald Trump himself. But now, behind the scenes, they deride his big promises and tiny delivery on Doge. They disapprove of his public antics that have made him such a liability. Indeed, such a hash he made of the Doge cuts that congressional Republicans won't even vote a small slice of them into becoming permanent cuts. They, after all, had to endure the furious town hall events where Doge was the prompt for major blowback against them. The people that were supposed to have been on Musk's side have therefore apparently abandoned him. He may not have had the long-expected blowout with Trump himself, but the next best thing, the rest of the party, including the Trump loyalists, have quickly come to loathe and detest him. The question becomes how much he can save his businesses after all this self-inflicted harm. In the case of Tesla, that has to be quite a big question mark. If the plan is that Musk stops being political, recenters his public profile on the excitement of his products, and he actually manages to apply discipline to that strategy, then the answer's still a qualified maybe at best. I'm old enough to remember, and you do have to be quite old to remember this, when, for instance, Nestle became infamous for allegations over its baby milk powder marketing to parents in developing countries. The widespread negativity towards the brand, ongoing boycott of it, endured for many years, even after such problems had stopped being current. In this case, Tesla still has the problem that electric vehicle ownership is mostly appealing to the political left, which he has alienated with deliberate and reckless intent. It does not appeal to the Trumpian right, and for all that Trump setting up a Tesla showroom on the grounds of a White House may have improved favourability with that group, it still doesn't mean that the people who cheered at the slogan "Drill, baby, drill" are going to rush out and buy one. In the Qatar forum, Musk claimed that sales of Teslas have turned around, with the exception of Europe, which he said was a very weak market for EVs, which was affecting every company equally. That seems to confirm that the Muskism that he certainly isn't intending to give up is talking drivel. There is no evidence of a turnaround in Tesla sales since the first quarter of this year, which was significantly down, and he didn't offer any evidence. He instead simply pointed at the share price. As he did so, he claimed that the share price was near record highs, which is just false. I mean, it's risen recently, but it still has a long way to go to recover the catastrophic 71% free fall it experienced during the first quarter of the year, while he was running around firing civil servants and cancelling aid programs. In the non-sensationalist press, there's still questions about whether the valuation of Tesla really reflects the company's sales and likely short to medium-term future performance. Some have suggested that Tesla is effectively a meme stock, with a valuation that depends a lot on emotion and sentiment around the imagined star power lent to the product by Musk himself. And of course that makes it vulnerable should the shine continue to come off Musk to the degree that investors fear losing their money more because of his involvement. All of this is probably one reason why Tesla is developing market presence in countries like Saudi Arabia and indeed Qatar. Musk was in attendance during Trump's recent tour of the Middle East, and it came just weeks after Tesla launched, for example, in Saudi Arabia. Markets with lots of people with money, and generally very little market pushback from customers for association with President Trump. That may well be a more lucrative pond for Tesla to fish in over the next few years than is Europe. providing, of course, Elon restrains himself from gratuitously insulting leading political figures in the kingdom, in the way that he has consistently done in the UK and Germany, or indeed going on about free speech, bearing in mind that Saudi Arabia has seen people arrested for posting on Twitter and has even had the prosecutors seeking the death penalty. Musk has been known to be somewhat scathing about considerably less than that, but on these matters in Saudi Arabia, well, so far, silence. Will those markets save Tesla? Not on their own. Musk will have to hope that his lower profile will be accompanied with a lot more forgiving and forgetting than Nestle experienced. What is likely more enduring, however, is one of Musk's other companies, SpaceX and its product Starlink. For one thing, and you can call this conflict of interest, you can call it corruption if you like, Starlink is currently rather well favoured for government work. Significant parts of NASA's program have been cut, but the whole going to Mars thing is likely to remain in favour. Then we have President Trump's announcement that he aims to put a so-called Golden Dome missile defence shield in place to protect America from its enemies' missiles, which he claims will be completed by the end of his current term. I'm not aware that any such major project has ever got done that quickly, but I guess we'll find out. That project could cost around $500 billion. And Elon Musk's company is reportedly a front runner for a role in the project, possibly alongside Palantir and Anduril. Musk later denied that claim, but when someone lies all the time in public, as he demonstrably does, you do discount routine denials when they're the sort of thing that routinely get denied before agreements are actually finalised and formally announced. Add to that the fact that the US State Department has been pushing countries across the world, especially those that are grievously threatened with major tariffs by the Trump government, to permit Starlink to operate as a service in their countries. With a dominant position in internet connectivity, thanks to SpaceX's flooding the lower atmosphere with thousands of its satellites, Musk has a relatively short window of opportunity to establish himself as more or less a monopolist in that space. And with the US government strong-arming him into markets around the world, he has a fair wind to achieve that, shall we say. Does all of this fall over as soon as a Democrat administration gets voted into office, assuming that ever happens again? Well, probably not when it comes to SpaceX, because its usefulness to NASA probably won't change. The simple fact of Starlink's dominance of the skies won't change. While governments might choose to scrutinise the cesspool that Twitter has become in recent years, and also Tesla, because it was previously being investigated for all sorts of safety and procedural non-compliances, all of which investigations, of course, have just melted away. It's hard to see that it becomes in their interest to pursue a vendetta against SpaceX. I mean, it perhaps depends on what happens in the meantime, because there's another 4 years of this still to come. What might be more of an existential challenge to Elon Musk, should the government change in the near future, would be a rigorous investigation into his activities during the Doge period, particularly how much sensitive data was compromised, whether backdoors were illegally inserted into software systems used by the government, whether the chaotic enterprise exposed that information to Russian hacking attacks, because we already know that in at least one department, the arrival of Doge saw sudden attempts to log into the system from Russia, using credentials the Doge operative had only just created 15 minutes earlier, suggesting that his systems had already been compromised. Musk shrugs off legalities as though they simply don't apply to him, which is one reason why there were so many cases outstanding against his companies when he suddenly arrived on the government's doorstep to sweep them aside. But that sort of illegality wouldn't be so easy to dismiss should there actually be substance behind those allegations of the Doge period. So that's about where we are. Elon Musk's entanglement with the Trump administration has been an exercise of extraordinary conflict of interest at best, out-and-out corruption at worst, but it seems as though it is now pretty definitively over. He may still make occasional references to what was done, commendations of certain political acts that he agrees with, but if the money's drying up, that is a clear statement that Musk is too disenchanted to put himself forward again as a vehicle for action. That's one in the eye for oligarchy. More revelations and unravelling will no doubt follow about all of this in the future.